Hello everyone and welcome back to Hachino Culture Japan. I'm Hach coming to you from Japan. Today's topic is the FIFA World Cup. If you want to understand Japan better, it's worth learning about Japanese sports culture too. Today, let's take a look back at Japan's journey and history in the World Cup. Japan first qualified for the World Cup in 1998 as the tournament held in France. Since then, Japan has qualified for every World Cup and is currently on a streak of 8 consecutive appearances. But to understand Japan's World Cup story, we have to go back to 1993 and a moment known as the Agony of Doha. Many Japanese football fans would say that this was the moment modern Japanese football truly began. 1993 was truly the year when modern Japanese football began. The J-League kicked off in May 1993 and suddenly soccer was everywhere in Japan. I was around 12 years old at the time and I remember how excited everyone was about soccer. I still remember watching the opening match of the J-League on May 15, 1993. The next day at the school, soccer was all anyone could talk about. Later that year, in October, Japan was playing in the final round of World Cup qualifying. Soccer fever had swept across the country and many fans believed Japan would finally reach the World Cup. Then came the final match against Iran in Doha, Qatar. Japan was leading late in the game. If they could hold on for just a few more minutes, their place in the World Cup would be secured. But in stoppage time, Iraq scored a dramatic equalizer. With that single goal, Japan's dream of reaching the World Cup came to an end. This moment is still remembered in Japan as the Agony of Doha, Doha no Higeki. The match was broadcast live in Japan late at night around 3 a.m. I actually woke up in the middle of the night to watch it, and honestly I was so excited. As the finally hoisted goal closer, I really thought Japan was finally going to the World Cup. But then, in stoppage time, Iraq scored the equalizer. The moment I was celebrating, and the next moment I just sat there in shock. I think that was the first time I ever felt a real sense of loss from watching sports. When it comes to Japanese soccer, knowing about the agony of Doha, or Doha no Higeki as we call it in Japanese, is a pretty good sign that you know your stuff. By the way, one of the players in that match was Hajime Moriyasu, who is now the head coach of the Japan's national team. I think that one of the coolest things about sports. The story doesn't end when the game is over. More than 30 years later, someone who experienced the agony of Doha is now leading Japan on the world stage. That's the kind of history that makes sports too fascinating. Then came November 1997. Japan beat Iran 3-2 and finally qualified for its first World Cup, the 1998 tournament in France. People in Japan call this moment the joy of Johor Bahru no Kanki. And honestly, that night was completely insane. I think that match ended around 11 p.m. Even though it was late at night, people were out celebrating everywhere. You could hear car horns non-stop, and every now and then you'd hear some random guy shouting at the top of his lungs because Japan had won. Looking back, it was a pretty amazing moment. But then again, maybe that's just what happens when your country qualifies for the World Cup. There was another huge story before the 1998 World Cup. The story was Kazu Miura. Kazu was one of the first Japanese players build a successful career overseas, spending part of his youth career in Brazil. He became the biggest star in Japanese soccer and helped make the sport popular across the country. To many people, Kazu wasn't just a soccer player, he was a symbol of Japanese soccer itself. And here's something even more amazing. He's still playing professionally today. He's still playing professionally in his late 50s. Honestly, that alone is legendary. That's why so many people were shocked when he was left out of the final World Cup squad. It's hard to find a perfect comparison, but it would be kind of like Team Japan leaving Shohei Ohtani off a major international tournament roster. A lot of people simply couldn't believe it. Speaking of Japanese soccer fans, there's another thing we are known for: cleaning up the stadium after the match. These days, people all over the world talk about it whenever the World Cup comes around, but apparently Japanese fans were already doing it back in France in 1998. Looking back, I kind of want to give those fans a little credit. They were doing it long before anyone around the world started talking about it. Even today, TV shows in Japan sometimes look back at the road to our first World Cup qualification, and every time I watch them, I still get fired up. Maybe it's because I lived those moments myself. I'm sure all of you have sport moments you'll never forget too. Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.